Welcome, everyone. I am Adesewa Josh, and this is Africa Matters. Several African countries are preparing for a fourth wave of COVID-19 infections by imposing vaccination requirements. In Ghana, a game developer is giving big companies like Nintendo, Sony, and Xbox a run for their money. He's launched a game that has many fans in Africa. And in Uganda, an entrepreneur has created a mosquito-repelling soap to fight malaria. Kenya has become the latest African country to announce COVID-19 vaccination requirements as the continent braces for another surge in cases. The government says Kenyans who haven't received both shots wouldn't be allowed to enter bars, restaurants, or public transport from December the 21st. Similar directives were issued to government workers in August. Egypt, Djibouti, and Tunisia also require government staff to be fully vaccinated. And last month, Nigeria and Zimbabwe announced those who haven't had the shots won't be allowed into government offices. The World Health Organization says that out of the 360 million COVID-19 vaccine doses supplied to Africa, about 60% have been used so far. Uncertainty over deliveries to the continent has become a major stumbling block in the vaccine rollout, and countries with sufficient doses are also battling vaccine hesitancy. Just 15 African countries had met an international goal to fully vaccinate 10% of their populations by the end of September. Nearly half of them are island states with relatively small populations. The Seychelles and Mauritius are leading with more than 60% of their populations fully vaccinated. Morocco comes second at 48%. More than 20% of the people in Tunisia, Comoros, and Cape Verde have received 2 shots. Well, let's get more analysis from Amitaka, a doctor and pioneer of healthcare management in Africa. He joins me from Nairobi. Thank you so much for making our time. Is Africa ready for the fourth wave? And is there a need to panic, given that COVID-19 has been less deadly in Africa than in other parts of the world?
Africa is ready for the fourth wave. It's much readier to deal with the wave than we did with first wave. It's going to come in different waves. We will even get the fifth and sixth. Until and unless we don't get herd immunities, let's just get ready for the waves and have less damage to lives and livelihoods. That's the answer that we need to work on.
You said we're going to have fifth and sixth and seventh wave until we have herd immunity. Are we achieving herd immunity, seeing that we don't have enough vaccines and our vaccination rate is the lowest in the world?
Good question. It's an amazing amount of progress in the last 2 months. And the next 6 months, the first 2 quarters of next year are going to be extremely good for acceleration. By the end of next year, we will be very advanced. Remember, we were caught up in poor supplies. We never even produced a single vaccine in our continent. With the factories now and the manufacturers opening up, we have a promise and a pledge which will realize quite significantly in the first and second quarters. The absorption capacity is what we need to get prepared for. So Africa, the year for Africa to change its economic safety and herd immunity is 2022.
What do you mean the absorption is what we should get ready for? Do you mean when the vaccines come, how to roll them out? Or what exactly are you talking about here?
We don't want a single vaccine to expire in Africa. That's the end of the story. We should not let any vaccine expire. And all the vaccines should be in the arms of people to make sure that we have no more unnecessary casualties, mortalities, and morbidities. And we start reducing the NPIs. These are curfews, lockdowns, restriction of movement, so the informal sector and people in the markets can get on to their business and have the economic growth going up. That's what we need to do.
A growing number of governments with sufficient COVID-19 vaccine doses are considering mandatory vaccination to address the issue of vaccine hesitancy. Could this strategy backfire, or is this the way to go?
This is a definite way to go. I encourage all governments in Africa to start having a modified mandatory vaccine strategy. It's going to save lives. It's going to allow us to reach herd immunity quicker. It's going to open up economies. I understand there are many people who need the human rights card being played on those who want to, who don't want to. but we need to address the public health issues.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Amitaka, a pioneer of healthcare management in Africa, for your thoughts on Africa Matters. Thank you. We have more stories coming up for you here on Africa Matters, including...
With the third highest number of cases in the world, malaria continues to kill thousands of people in Uganda every year. I am Darren Alan Cheine at this innovation hub, where a young entrepreneur is hoping to change that one bar of soap at a time.
From pavement to pixels, I'm Isaac Kaleji, and I'll tell you how some of these cars and this very street is being showcased inside a popular video game.
Welcome back. Farmers in Ivory Coast have for decades applied traditional and complex methods of turning bio-waste into compost for their farmland. Now, one Ivorian entrepreneur is helping them transform organic waste into a more valuable product for a better harvest. Usman Aliyuba reports.
Noel Gessan is shaking up the farming sector in Ivory Coast. He has developed the Cubeco box to help farmers transform waste into fertilizer.
So here's how we build the fertilizer Cubeco box. The fertilizer Cubeco box is an agricultural tool. It helps producers to transform their own organic waste into fertilizer, in solid compost or liquid fertilizer.
Farmers collect any agricultural waste and mix it with animal manure in the Cubeco box. There are microorganisms inside that react to the waste. It takes about a month for the waste to turn into organic fertilizer. Farmers like Michel Ahuri is trialing the product and says it's helping him yield a better harvest.
We will easily reach 40 tons per hectare per year because with this fertilizer, it is natural, it's organic, it's appropriate for our ground, for our fields. We will triple our production.
About 50 boxes are now installed in farms across Ivory Coast. But it's not cheap. Each one costs around $800. But Gessan says he's planning to reduce the price by at least $100 to make it more affordable to farmers.
Today, the demand is real, but the pilot project showed something. It enabled us to confirm that buying a Cubeco is a profitable investment for a farmer. So the fact that the liquid fertilizer that I just collected or solid compost improves the production has been known for decades in Ivory Coast. Everyone knows that. But the question was, would buying the equipment enable you to be cost effective?
About 30 billion kilos of agricultural waste and animal manure are dumped every year in Ivory Coast. Farming experts say equipment like the Cubeco box help farmers adopt a bio-friendly system of farming that leads to a better environment. Usman Aliyu Uba, Africa Matters.
Only 1 in 1,000 sea turtles live to be adults. That's according to estimates by scientists and conservationists. One of the main reasons they face such long odds is due to human activity. But as Natasha Hussein reports, the pandemic might be giving more of these reptiles a fighting chance.
It's a matter of life or death. On a beach in Senegal, scores of baby turtles sprint towards the Atlantic Ocean from the sands of their birthplace. This instinct increases their chances of survival. Once out of the nest, hatchlings face many threats such as crabs, birds, and dogs. But none of those predators is as dangerous as people. Jibril Diakate is a barkeeper in the beachside village of Goreo. He patrols the beach to fend off predators and protect the hatchlings.
I first opened my restaurant on the other side of the beach. One morning during the COVID period, I found that a turtle had laid her eggs in my bar. It was very surprising to see the turtle tracks. I immediately reported it to the water and forestry agents.
A generation ago, dozens of turtles used to lay their eggs in Goreo, but tourism, fishing, and construction drove most of them away. Last season, around 15 turtle nests appeared, up from just 2 a year earlier. A wildlife agent attributes this increase to pandemic restrictions.
Last year, we had periods of confinement because of the COVID-19 outbreak. The borders were closed, so there weren't many people on the beaches or at the hotels. There was less light, so more turtles came to lay their eggs on the beaches. This is why, since last year, we've seen such a return of sea turtles here. Although there were small nests identified here and there, last year we saw a great influx. That trend has continued into this year.
Senegal has 3 turtle species, and conservation authorities say all of them are at risk of extinction.
Turtles, for those who don't know, play the role of ocean cleaners, and they are often called ocean garbage collectors elsewhere. They regulate marine algae by eating them, and marine algae are dependent upon by a lot on other species such as tuna, lobster, and shrimp. If these turtles were to disappear, that would create an imbalance in the food chain and threaten the entire ecosystem.
Environmentalists fear that a return to pre-pandemic activity and tourism could endanger the turtles even more. But volunteers like Jibril are determined to protect these young ones until they can make a run for the sea. Natasha Hussein, Africa Matters.
The World Health Organization says sub-Saharan Africa accounted for 94% of the world's 230 million malaria cases in 2019. One social entrepreneur in Uganda is pushing the fight against this life-threatening disease by producing mosquito-repellent soap. Darren Alan Cheyune reports.
As a child, Joan Narubega often suffered from malaria. She was prompted to try to find a solution after her friend lost a child to the same disease in 2014. Her social enterprise now makes soap, which helps shield local communities from mosquito bites.
I make this mosquito repellent soap mainly because I suffered a lot from malaria when I was little, and I didn't have access to any preventive measure except the mosquito nets, which we have used for decades, but they can only provide protection when you're sleeping or during sleep time. So people or we are unprotected before we go to bed. So this soap came in as a solution. We brought it in as a solution to bridge the gap when mosquitoes start to come from 4 until the person goes to bed.
She combines vegetable fats with essential oils and blends them with sodium hydroxide and a repellent. The mixture is dried for 8 to 18 hours and then molded into soap. This soap is becoming a valuable asset in households. Often used for an evening shower, it can potentially offer protection from mosquito bites for up to 6 hours. Narubega has sold 600,000 soaps at a subsidized price of 70 US cents to 2 million people in rural communities in the past 3 years. It has helped people like this family of 10 in rural Uganda.
We bathe using this soap, and at night before we go to sleep, we smear it on our bodies. It has protected us from mosquitoes which make us sick. The money we would have spent on going to the hospital to treat malaria is saved and diverted to do other things in the home.
Uganda has the 3rd highest number of malaria cases in the world, with children affected most. The World Health Organization recently approved a vaccine for children, and health workers say people need to continue using bed nets to help reduce malaria.
Given the fact that the Ministry of Health in Uganda has already distributed mosquito nets, and I'm pretty sure a majority of the population have the mosquito nets, there is going to be double protection to the population. This will come in that before bed, somebody will be protected, and during bedtime, somebody will be protected.
The coronavirus pandemic has disrupted Narubega's production line, but she hopes that by working closely with hospitals, she will see healthier communities across Africa. Darren Alan Cheyune, Africa Matters, Mpigi, Central Uganda.
And now for a roundup of other stories making news across the continent. Nigeria has dismissed a leaked report that says soldiers were involved in a massacre of protesters last year. The government says it's a fake. The report by a judicial panel investigating the deaths found that the armed forces had killed people at a demonstration against police brutality in Lagos. The information minister says the report is riddled with errors and speculation and says its conclusions are not supported by evidence. South Africa has asked its COVID-19 vaccine producers to delay deliveries because it now has too many doses in stock.
Johannesburg health officials say vaccine hesitancy is slowing the inoculation campaign. Earlier this year, vaccinations were slowed by insufficient doses. The U.S. welcomed a deal to reinstate Sudan's Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, but urged more progress on its transition to democracy before restoring aid. The military had deposed Hamdok in a coup last month, but he signed a power-sharing deal with the coup leader and was returned to his post. Members of the deposed transitional government have slammed the deal and called it a betrayal. They accuse Hamdok and his cabinet of being a puppet of the generals. Nigerian striker Victor Osimhen is likely to miss the Africa Cup of Nations in January because he needs 3 months to recover from a surgery to a smashed cheekbone. Osimhen suffered multiple face fractures after a clash of heads during Napoli's defeat at Inter Milan last weekend. Osimhen has already scored 9 times for the club this season.
The video game industry is worth billions of dollars, and even though it's popular among young people in Africa, not many of the games are developed by Africans. One young Ghanaian wants to help the industry grow on the continent, and he's already launched his own games, which are not only entertaining players, but showing some of his country's unique culture to the rest of the world. Isaac Kaleji went to Accra to meet him.
These days, Dinasto Apedo is always working on his video game designs. The young Ghanaian taught himself programming 10 years ago by watching YouTube videos. Last year, when COVID-19 lockdowns were imposed, he launched his first creation.
It's about giving the 1 billion Africans something to look at when they get onto the Play Store, something that represents them, something that they can look at and they can know that there is something about us that I can see in this piece of software that I can play with and engage with, something I can show people and say that, doesn't this look familiar?
Players race Ghanaian branded taxis on well-known roads and past recognizable landmarks. The first volume of RWC Racing took Apedo 2 years to build, and he's recently released a second version with advanced features.
Just like how in superhero movies, the costume, colors, and themes are very important. The same for video games.
Make we go. Earlier this year, Apedo launched his second creation, a first-person shooter game. Both are available on the Apple and Google Play stores, and between them have more than 50,000 downloads. Developers like Dinasto Apedo are not just creating jobs for young people while growing Africa's lucrative game industry. They are also projecting their vision of Africa to the world. The global video game market is expected to surpass $290 billion by 2027, according to research company Global Industry Analyst. The African market is still growing, but demand for content is huge among young people, and many are already fans of Apedo's games.
I saw a Ghanaian track in there, and these are things we see in our everyday life. So for the developer to inculcate all of this into the game, it will help Ghanaian kids who are upcoming, who are interested in games, to feel belonged in the game than to play any other foreign game.
Apedo says he wants to build a successful business that will encourage other young African developers to enter the industry. Isaac Kaleji, Africa Matters, Accra.
Kinshasa is known as one of Africa's artistic hubs. One self-taught craftsman is making a name for himself there by finding music in imperfection. Sharon Ogunleya has the story.
Jean Luther Misoko Inzalayala goes by many names. Around his neighborhood, in the back streets of Kinshasa, he's called Sokolo. But to musicians around the world, he's known as the guitar maker of Kinshasa. Over the past 40 years, he's crafted thousands of instruments in his workshop. He says his unique sound comes from the offbeat material he uses.
First, it was a chair that you're happy to sit on. When it dies, I give it a second life, and it is resurrected.
And that's not the only part of his instruments that come from recycled pieces.
Our strings are from many places, such as old braid cables from cars and motorbikes, and also, for example, electric cables. We take them, open them up, and take the cables and stretch them.
Sokolo grew up dreaming to be a footballer, but rheumatism pushed him to pursue music. When he was a teenager, he taught himself how to take apart and rebuild a guitar he got from a friend. 3 years later, he sold his first handmade guitar to his cousin, and he hasn't stopped since then.
I made many things, and these helped to improve my process and rethink my designs. And the one thing I'm proud of, all the guitars I have made, I've never gone to a workshop where I can cheat or copy what other people are doing. No, it's my method.
In time, not only family but also famous celebrities started to fill Sokolo's tin shed, looking to get their hands on his creations.
Sokolo is far better than Gibson, perhaps because he doesn't have the means to make something that we call smooth. But I've played it all over the world, and everyone is amazed to see that guitar doing what it does. The way it plays, it's like a tornado. There is no illusion.
Sokolo says he doesn't have much time these days to play for himself, but he knows music from his guitars is resonating around the world. Sharon Ogunleye, Africa Matters.
And as the COVID-19 pandemic ravaged many cities around the world, a Ghanaian in New York sifted through storage containers and struggling bookshops to build what he says has become the world's largest collection of African photography books. Paul Ninson plans to take his collection of more than 30,000 books back to Ghana and open a photography museum with help from a crowdfunding campaign that raised more than $1 million in just 2 days.
Pandemic changed us a lot. But for me, what happened was that I was constantly emailing people, constantly emailing galleries, collections, private collectors, and telling them my vision and what I want to do. And that is where it led me to massive amount of books. So during pandemic, I was in warehouses packing books. I was in people's basement packing books by myself, and that's how I was able to amass a lot of books. In the beginning, when I was collecting these books and I was spending my own money, working under a lot of work, several hours to pay for this, was because I come from Ghana. I don't come from a rich home. And to have the opportunity to come here, the whole notion is like to make it for yourself. But for me, it was different. If I make for myself, it's easy in our industry to become a superstar. But superstar over what? When there's a lot of people in Ghana who are desperately willing to be photographers to tell stories of Africa. So for me, it was like the sacrifice will pay off. And that was my reward, always the thought. And I think I was going to continue to work on this. I wasn't going to lose hope. And that is me. That's Ponens, and I never give up. Sometimes people see somebody like me differently. Why? Because the narrative which has been perpetrated for years has eroded in the people's mind. And that is what is affecting my country and my Africa and people like me. Why? Because we've left the space for so long for people to tell their stories and distribute their stories. And that is what I want to be able to fill that, give the tools and the resources to African photographers and to Black people to be able to tell our stories.
This week, we go to East Africa and explore the city of Beira, known as the heart of Mozambique. that's our show this week. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Please share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode or ideas on what you would like us to cover on Twitter using the hashtag #AfricaMatters. Please feel free to reach out to me on my personal handle. It's @Adesewa Josh for scoops or breaking news. We'll leave you with these images from across the continent.